You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Hey, everybody. I have joined TikTok. And what I'm doing on TikTok are just little quick news things, just quick little snippets of the latest news, and then bring you guys to the Dan Wickline show to talk about it. But I found something kind of interesting on TikTok, and I'm going to need Jay to come on. Jay?
What's up?
It seems that all you have to do is say, "Hey, Jay, give me a fun fact."
In the DreamWorks movie El Dorado, none of the animals can talk, right? Well, when the characters first get to El Dorado, if you watch closely, the horse behind them mouths the word El Dorado. You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we're going to be using that a lot from now on. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline show. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dan Wickline show here on The Experience. Today, we are going to talk a little bit more about Sandman. We're going to have Kyle come on. But we got two other things. You can go ahead and bring Kyle in, but we've got two other things we're going to just cover real quick. One is the Variety report that folks at Warner Brothers are not happy about, or kind of wishing they had never put out the Snyder Cut of Justice League, because it didn't do what they had hoped it would, which is settle fans down. And my attitude is, well, if you guys would actually tell us what the hell you are doing instead of leaving a vacuum of knowledge and letting everybody fill in and make up their own desires and wishes, no, it's not going to solve anything. But if you actually come out and say, hey, this is what we're doing, it might actually get people to start talking about what you're doing instead of what you're not doing. Did you see that, Kyle?
I saw that article, and ironically, I had said to a friend of mine a couple weeks ago, I think releasing the Snyder Cut was the worst thing they've done, because what they wound up doing, and when they did that, was the same thing like when you give a 3-year-old ice cream for dinner. You have caved to the screaming toddler, and now they think they can get their way all the time. And so, Batgirl got canceled, which may or may not be the right thing to have done. But the screaming toddler is going to scream, release Batgirl, like it screamed, release the Snyder Cut. And DC is going to have to do it.
Yep.
Or they're going to have to keep hearing this backlash. Instead, they could have just released their crappy Justice League movie, not release the Snyder Cut, and it all would have died years ago.
It's like they're calling for releasing the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. We've got a better Suicide Squad movie now. Why don't we just move on?
I tell you what, I'm going to release the Kyle cut of every superhero movie. It will be the opening titles and the end credits.
So now let's go to the other side of this. That's how DC handles their mess. Marvel. Now, you guys remember that Marvel came out with Iron Man 3, and they went, here's the Mandarin, psych, it's Trevor Slattery. And everyone went, oh my God, that's horrible. And then they went, oh, you didn't like Trevor. Here's a little Marvel short, All Hail the King, where we get to see Trevor get kidnapped by somebody that might have been the real Mandarin. That's Kevin Feige kind of doubling down on Trevor Slattery.
Well, I was just saying, here's Shang-Chi, where it fixed all of that.
Yeah, that's where I was getting to. Shang-Chi comes along. So everybody's like, okay, fine. We like Trevor Slattery. And Kevin Feige's back there going, oh, yeah? But you didn't believe. So guess what? We're getting more Trevor Slattery. Ben Kingsley will be back in the upcoming Wonder Man series on Disney+. Yep.
I'm not excited for the Wonder Man series, but I am excited for Ben Kingsley. I like Ben Kingsley.
Yes, more Trevor Slattery. And I wonder if that'll mean we'll get more Morris.
Oh, God, I hope so. I'm still pissed there's not a Morris Funko Pop and a Morris, like, Squishmallow and, you know, like...
There's a Morris plushie.
There is.
I got one for
one of those giant ones that's actually like a pillow. And I want Morris Funko Pops. And I want Morris emoticons. And, like, I don't... Like, Morris meets the Toy Story gang. Just everything you can give me with that character, I will take.
So more Morris.
So much Morris. You could call it Lamorne Morris, which is a New Girl joke that no one gets but me and
you. I got it. I didn't want it, but I got it. Yeah, what we need is an animated series featuring Morris and Goose.
Okay, I get behind that.
Yeah. So, all right, that's the big news. But we're going to talk about Sandman. We got
real quick. Who was it? Who was the Morris that was on SNL?
That was Garrett Morris, who also is in the MCU. He was in Ant-Man.
Yes, and if he could narrate the Morris animated series, I'd be in.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Dan Price says, I like the Ben Kingsley Mandarin. I thought it was clever. It was a nice bait and switch. But, you know, of course, fans went, no, we wanted the real Mandarin. Really? Because that's pretty racist.
Also, the real Mandarin kind of sucks.
Yeah, Wen Wu was much better. Villain. But what they did with the character, Wen Wu, was awesome.
It's true.
So, all right. So we're going to talk one more time about Sandman. And I think I'm contractually obligated to because of Kyle. It's his favorite series ever. Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things, and I'll say this, Dan. We've drugged this out 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. 3 weeks for 11 episodes is a pretty good pace.
It is. And I'm the guy that thinks that we should stop binge watching shows. That they should do the weekly release because it keeps it in the conversation longer. You're going to get better hits, better stuff. But Netflix only cares about the first month. You know, so if you haven't finished Sandman, even if you just put it on and let it run, if you want to hope for a second season, just put it on, let it run. Put it on again if you've already seen it. Let it run. Let it run through all the episodes. When it says, are you still watching? Hell yeah, this is Sandman.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's that first month that's going to decide if there's a second season.
Right.
It's not like HBO that went, 4 people are watching Game of Thrones already. Let's go ahead and renew it.
I will say this for HBO renewing the new Game of Thrones thing. Mm-hmm. The marketing around the new Game of Thrones thing has probably generated so much revenue for HBO.
Yeah.
That even if no one watches the show, they're making money.
It amazes me, though, how many people watch the show because when Game of Thrones ended, they were ready to get pitchforks and torches. There was a petition to refilm the final episode because fans were not happy.
I blame the Snyder Cut.
Yeah. But it's been that way since before the Snyder Cut. It's been save this show, save that show. I can't believe you canceled this. I can't believe you canceled that. You know, and just because, you know, or the one that's getting me right now is, you know, replace Amber Heard on Aquaman. The movie's done. She's in like 2 minutes of the movie.
I remember when the show Chuck was on NBC.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to cancel it. And I was a big fan of Chuck. And I was in school. I was in college at the time. I was in art school. And a bunch of us were really big fans of Chuck. And so we got really involved in the Save Chuck movement, which just was like, hey, Subway, we will eat Subway every day for a year if you agree to sponsor Chuck. Because they were a big sponsor. They were a big product placement. All this kind of stuff. You know, like it was a big deal for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I look back on that now going, God, what an annoying bunch of kids. But it worked. We got a last season of Chuck, and the show was able to end the way it needed to end.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great TV out there that doesn't get to keep going. We were talking about Dan Lin, the guy that's the front runner for the Kevin Feige job at Warner Brothers or at DC. And one of the shows that he was a producer on was called Forever, which starred Ian Griffith, the guy that played Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four. The two movies with Jessica Alba and stuff.
I had that part of my brain surgically removed.
Well, he plays a coroner who helps the police solve crimes, but he can't die. Every time he dies, he gets killed.
Oh, I remember this show now.
Yeah, he comes back to life in the middle of the water, in the middle of the New York harbor, because it's whatever, he's been doing it for his entire life. And there was some really neat stuff in the show, and I really liked the show. And this is when Castle was big, so the whole idea of having a smart person helping the cops, because you could never have a smart cop, it seems. They can't just have a smart cop. They got to have a consultant that's smart to help the cops because they're dumb.
Well, because you had, at that time, you had Bones. You had Castle. You had, what was the show? There was a show where she was the coroner, and the detective was played by the guy from Kangaroo Jack. Providence,
okay.
Where, she was like the coroner, so she was like super helpful to the cops, like she's solving the murders and not the cops.
Yep.
Even though Mike Farrell was in that show from MASH, and that's the only reason I remember the show.
Okay.
That was the thing at the time. Like, what zombies were to the early 2010s, smart people helping cops were to really the last 30 years.
Yeah. But the show Forever, one of the things I loved about it was that Judd Hirsch was on the show and played his son, which I thought was great because guy can't die, And there was a string of shows like that about people that couldn't die. There was a detective series starring Nikolai Coster-Waldau, the guy from Game of Thrones, Jaime Lannister. And it was called New Amsterdam. Even though there's a show on now called New Amsterdam, this was before. And he played a detective that had lived forever. And that was another one where the bartender was his son, who was actually older than him. And yeah, it's kind of the Highlander thing,
Yeah, I remember that show.
That was on Fox and lasted like 6 episodes.
Hey, all of these shows we're talking about lasted longer than the show I recently did a deep dive into studying. That lasted 3 episodes. The Paul Reiser Show. Yes. I became very interested on why a show starring Paul Reiser at the time when the Paul Reiser Show came out would be unsuccessful. And as it turns out, Paul Reiser was never funny. But at a time when Mad About You was popular, it was living off of this is a Gary Shandling-esque comedian, and everybody could get away with everything. Kind of like when we had that period where every singer kind of sounded like Amy Winehouse. Because Amy Winehouse was real popular. It was that.
Yeah. Yeah. I missed that phase, by the way. I didn't know who Amy Winehouse was until she died.
Yeah, no, big fans of Paloma Faith and some of the other singers that came out of that era.
Paloma Faith should be back on TV soon when Pennyworth returns.
Yep.
She is one of the most twisted characters on that show.
So I have this dream, and it's not going to happen because they're both married to other people, that Paloma Faith and I'm going to blank on his name now. Noel Fielding, sorry.
Okay.
Are going to someday get together and film a semi-reality show where they ghost hunt. Like, it's mostly fiction.
Yeah.
But there's some reality to it, like staged reality.
Yeah.
Where it's just Paloma Faith and Noel Fielding being two of the most eccentric comedians, and yes, because they were magic on Nevermind the Buzzcocks. But like they're like a couple who are ghost hunting together, but the ghosts are a little scared of them.
All right. Completely off topic, but we've been that way since the show started, and we might as well do a little bit more, then do a commercial, then do Sandman.
Seems fair.
Do you know who Arlo Guthrie is?
Arlo Guthrie lived in one of Donald Trump Sr.'s penthouse things and wrote a song about him being a slumlord, and is the father of Woody Guthrie, the great American songwriter.
No, Arlo Guthrie is the guy that did Alice's Restaurant.
Right. Or son of Woody Guthrie. Sorry.
Yes.
I had that backwards. Yes.
Yes.
You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant, excepting Alice.
Yeah. So I was talking with my nephew the other day, and something came up, and I did a Southern accent. And as I was talking somewhere, it drifted into Bob Dylan. And I've got this thing where I can do, basically I can Dylanize any song just by talking like this. You suddenly turn everything into Bob Dylan. And I didn't realize as I was talking about Dylan, I ended up into a perfect Arlo Guthrie imitation.
Not that far off.
No, but yeah, when you talk like this, and then you slow it down a little bit, and you add some pauses, and then you start talking like Arlo Guthrie. Because you can get everything you want at Alice's Restaurant.
I was sitting there on the bench labeled K with all the other K bench people.
There was Mother Rapist and Father Stabbers, and there was Father Rapist right on the bench next to me.
Right.
And the 27 8x10 color glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and the paragraph on the back of each one, saying what each one is, went out the window.
I love that song. That is so okay. Labor Day is coming up on Monday. Mm-hmm. Some people have holiday traditions. Like I, for years, had a Labor Day tradition where I would play in a softball tournament every Labor Day.
Okay.
But one of my most heartfelt traditions is one I picked up when I got into radio, which is I listened to Alice's Restaurant at least twice every Thanksgiving.
KLOS out here in Los Angeles would play Alice's Restaurant, and my brother and I grew up, and that was our thing. We would listen to it every Thanksgiving.
Do you know where the tradition came from?
I do not.
The song is so long.
It is.
That it gave the DJs, they could put it on, drop the needle, go to the kitchen, heat up their Thanksgiving meal, put it all together, and come back and eat it before the song was over.
Yep.
It's the same reason that more children have been conceived to Frampton Comes Alive than any other piece of music ever. So it was a way for DJs and people who had to work Thanksgiving to have some sense of normalcy. And then it just became a thing when you no longer had to have a person there. It had become such a tradition that it just kind of moved on. And it started at KLOS. And we had a DJ here who had interned at KLOS in the 60s. and he brought it to Toledo. And I mean, it's all over the place. Like it's been kind of widely adopted, but
Yeah.
in the written instructions for how to run Thanksgiving on our radio stations, it was, you must play Alice's Restaurant at noon, and you must play Alice's Restaurant at 4. And so still to this day, I listen to Alice's Restaurant at noon and 4 every Thanksgiving.
Yep. Yeah, that was my tradition too. Just like on Thanksgiving, I watched 1776. Oh, not on 4th of July.
Yeah, that's fair. I watch for Memorial Day, I watch Band of Brothers.
There you go. Never on Christmas, but up until Christmas, I always sit down and watch Scrooged.
Muppet Christmas Carol. For me.
Jay says if the experience ever does a cartoon, we have to do voices.
No. I can, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah. You should play D&D with me when I DM. Every NPC has a unique voice.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Any good DM does that.
Yeah.
My problem is so often so many of my voices just turn into different flavors of Batman. I'm Southern Batman. You know.
My problem is my players now make requests.
Right.
It's like, Doran in Waterdeep. They're like, can he be Sean Connery? Or yes, he can.
So, it's doing voices is Brainy. I have the potential to play D&D. I've played lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of D&D.
Potential patience.
Right. I have the patience.
You didn't have the patience to read the sentence.
I did. But Brainy's also texting me at the same time as we're doing this. So I have 2 different Brainy messages the same time.
Do you just write back, Snorf?
Snarf!
On that note, we shall go to a commercial. We'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning into The Experience. Help us out and hit subscribe over on YouTube and click the bell when you do. Need some help? Scan the QR code in the bottom corner. Get the inside scoop on everything happening at The Experience every week. Join our mailing list by scanning the QR code at the bottom of the screen and then watching your email inbox.
Just thinking, how cool would it have been if they had made Sandman like in the 80s and got like Michael Caine to play Constantine?
Did you see the story that came out about Eric Kripke?
What about him?
He had written and was trying to get a Sandman show produced, and Neil Gaiman killed it and like just stopped it from being made. And he goes, yeah, Neil was right. Mine sucked. He goes, he did the right thing in not letting mine come out. And I'm like, it takes a certain level of success to recognize that. And at the same time, only someone who's had the kind of success Eric Kripke has had with Supernatural and now with The Boys and with his other projects.
Yeah.
Can you recognize that? Yeah. Sometimes you're just not the guy.
I hadn't heard that, but I did hear that Gaiman had stopped a movie version done by John Peters by leaking the script to Aiden Cool News.
He had, my understanding is that at some point over the last 34 years or so, killed something like 25 different iterations of the show. So,
do you think that this was the right version then? I mean, obviously he did.
I do. I think we had to, on some levels, I think for Sandman to exist, we had to do kind of what James Cameron had to do for Avatar. We had to
someone else's story, put a bunch of special effects on it, and then wait 20 some odd years to try to do another one?
No. We had to wait for the technology to be invented to make the thing. Like in a big sense, and we can get into the James Cameron Avatar of it all later. That's a different day and 2-hour conversation between us.
Mm-hmm.
But I think without a streaming provider to host this show never would have made it on television. It wouldn't have been a good movie. It's too slow to be television. It's too broad to be a movie. It has to be a mini series. And I think like it would have to have been on pay cable to have been on television. Yes. It had to be on HBO, Stars, one of those kind of platforms. So a streamer is the most widely accessible way to do that. Through the first 6 episodes, I was amped to say this is the best adaptation of anything I've seen. And when we get through 7, 8, and 9, I'm still there. But it sort of starts off strong and kind of tapers to a point at the end, and then it kind of gets a little better. And I just think it lost a little momentum midway through.
I could see that.
Go ahead.
I'm going to be honest. As I get further away from watching it, the more issues I have with it.
The longer you have time to think about it?
Yeah. I remember listening to the audio, but I didn't read the comics. And part of the reason I didn't read the comics was they weren't for me. I mean, they really came across... I don't know if you ever had this in your life, but where everybody is telling you that you must love something.
Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, Mad Men, Walking Dead, really any of the CBS dramas, most modern all the superhero movies. Yeah.
But getting everybody telling me, oh my God, you'd love Sandman. It's great. And it's like, no, I'm not a fan. I tried to read, flip through the books, see if I got... It didn't do much for me. Now, mind you, it's not that I didn't get into those kind of things. I read Alan Moore's Swamp Things. They're great. I didn't get into Sandman. So it became years later when I actually listened to the audiobook. And what hooked me on the audiobook was the first part. Was Sandman actively going after his tools. That was the part I really liked. The 24-hour diner thing really kind of threw me off. But then after that, I kind of found myself listening just to finish it. I never really got into the whole Rose Walker story. the things I liked about it. Gilbert, I liked a lot. I didn't understand why everybody in the boarding house had to be caricatures of people instead of people. And I assume, well, that's something you'll figure out later on. Barbie comes back with Mr. Tenpoles or whatever his name is. Yeah, I know that, but the rest of the characters, did the two sisters or the two goth girls, with the spider collection, and I mean, it just seemed. It seemed like he was trying to be too edgy. He was trying to go too hard.
You feel kind of about Sandman how I feel about Umbrella Academy. It's trying to be artsy and pretentious for the sake of being artsy and pretentious.
Yeah.
Now, and again, we talked about this previously. I can't divorce my knowledge of Sandman from my knowledge of Sandman. Right? I can't what's the word I'm looking for? I can't take knowing how the book, all 75 issues of the book goes, away from what I watched in the show or what I listened to in the audiobook.
Yeah.
So I don't have the same hangups that you're having, right?
Yeah.
Sean, we'll get to the official grade on the show. No, but only because Dan's mustache isn't quite there yet. Brainy would like us to do a deep dive on these two shows, Dan.
Emily in Paris and Bridgerton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brainy, if you'd have showed up to Nerd News Now last night, you could have. Because we really didn't have anything to talk about. This right here. 2 false starts on reading Sandman. I was talking to a friend of mine who didn't like the show.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to talking about how the thing I like about Sandman is that it's about the story and how we interact with our dreams, and how oftentimes, though, that is both unsatisfying and upsetting. And that's how Dream interacts with the world in Sandman, right? Mm-hmm. It's not always as cut and dry as you'd like it to be. And so my problem with the show has become, and it's evidenced by The Dream of a Thousand Cats, which is one of the shows one of the episodes we're going to talk about tonight. The first part of the 2-part bonus story. It's incongruous to the rest of the series.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think, was it necessary to do it?
Not in the show, no.
Yeah,
in the first volume of the book, you get that story. You get Calliope, you get Facade, you get a number of other stories that kind of expand upon and help you to understand that we're going to find out how Dream interacts with other things as well. We're going to find out how Death interacts with other things as well. Because Facade is a great death story. Mm-hmm. So, like, you kind of start to understand how the Endless interact with the world a little more. And that's what the bonus episode should have done, was provide that clarity. But instead, they give you Dream of a Thousand Cats, which is an incredibly abstract thought.
Yes. Yeah, it does. I can't see how anybody... I can't see how normal folk, non-comic folk, are going to get that. And I don't mean that it's a concept that they can't understand. It's you're right. The whole show feels that way, because the first part is, Morpheus is the protagonist, and then the second part, he's just kind of sits back, and he's not really the protagonist, and he's barely the antagonist. He's more so in the books, I know, but and they dumbed down so many of the characters, and we spent so little time with Stephen Fry's character, who should have been a bigger part of it, that I want.
But he wasn't that big of a part in the book. He's an interesting part in the book, but he wasn't very big.
But they established him better.
Yes, 100%. 100%. So here's how I fix this show. Okay. One of the things they left out is the way Rose Walker calls Dream to the serial killers convention. Right? It's Gilbert writes down the name and says, when there's a problem, call this name. If I get real choppy and my internet goes out, it's because it's storming here.
Okay.
I just saw my internet thing flicker. So it's you kind of set that up, right? Like this whole part of the way you get Morpheus is by summoning Morpheus is of a certain segment of the population.
Okay.
And then you just tell your Rose Walker storyline the way you did, but you have her call that name. That's not an insignificant moment in the story that was completely eliminated from the show.
Mm-hmm.
Then what they could have done, and what I think would have been better, is move Calliope to the first part of episode 10. So you have a dream story, right, in this bonus episode that just shows Dream interacting with a different person in a different way. And then pick one of two. Either do Facade and give us another death story, and you have to come up with a way to deal with Element Girl. The Elemental Girl, whatever you want to call her, which they may not have had the rights to use. Or do A Dream of Midsummer, which is the Shakespeare story.
Right. Yeah.
Because at least the Shakespeare story is introduced in the Hob Gadling story earlier in the show.
True, but
and that's that whole Dream interacting with the rest of the world kind of experience without having to do Dream of 1,000 Cats.
But I want to take a step back here. And what does Dream of 1,000 Cats, Facades, and even Midsummer add to the series? Calliope, at least you get an understanding of Dream. There's some substance there.
The reason I like the Midsummer story as an option is that it shows that the Endless have a reverence for certain things, right? Like It's a story about Dream and how Dream has to interact with the world of fairy.
Right.
Right? There are things beyond humans. And the Endless interact with them as well, but they interact with them differently. The same as you kind of feel, you kind of get with when the Fates, or not the Fates, the Calliope's mothers, the what are we calling them?
The Muses.
Muses, thank you. I couldn't think of Muses. The way the Muses interact with the Endless. That the Endless aren't some end all be all kind of thing. They exist on a level that includes fairies, that include the Muses, that include demons and angels, that include all of these other things. And that it's about realms and reverence there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I like that, is it shows that Dream is not this all powerful end of the road guy. That even Dream has to answer to the King of Fairy when he's interacting with fairies. The thing about Facade is it kind of shows you the conciliatory side of death in a more real way. And I think it would just be good to have another death story.
Well, I am going to totally be sacrilegious here. If I was doing this series, I would have done the first 5 episodes. Episode 6 would have gone straight into Rose Walker. I would have expanded that story arc to give a little more understanding of some of the characters. And then the bonus episode would have been the death episode. Because I'm not thinking about it from the comics. I'm thinking about it as trying to appeal to the largest audience possible. There's very little understanding of who the Endless are in it. The only time we really get an understanding of the Endless comes in the death episode. And you could actually push that aside and get that as kind of the season finale reveal with the brother, with Desire and all that. Because I just feel like Gaiman is telling the story that he wants to tell. It's the story that he told in the comics, and he's trying to adapt it pretty close. But you're looking at a different audience. You go from a group of audience readers that are proactive readers. They look for this kind of stuff. They're used to it. They've seen it in other comics. To an audience base that is used to having everything handed to them. And I'm not saying that you've got to get to the point where you're just handing everything to them. But there are some concepts and stuff that I don't necessarily think moves the story forward. And I think that they're maybe too above being able to be just dropped like that.
I don't disagree with you. Here's my problem. And this is my, I think you have to cherry pick the first 30 issues or so to put together the first season and then come back and fill out the rest of the stories. I think in order for the Rose Walker story to truly work, you have to understand who the Endless are.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do that with any of the material, with all of the material in volume 1 alone. You can with The Sound of Her Wings, but like there's the dinner in volume 2 where it's where it's all the Endless except for Destruction having dinner.
Yeah.
And it kind of explains how they act as a family and how they see their realms and these kind of things. There's a story in volume 2 about Dream's relationship with Hell that really does clear up a lot of that, what you see in that 3rd episode where Dream goes to Hell.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's in a comic book, you can wait and tell that story later. In a show, you can't. So unfortunately, I think what they needed to do was spend some time building the world by pulling stories forward.
And I disagree. I think what they should have done was spent more time in this arc and focused on expand the Corinthian a bit, make him a little more. They toned him down too much. You've got to treat it like a TV series, a season of a TV series. And
I would have in this world left the Corinthian out completely.
No, see, I would have leaned into the Corinthian, and I would have had a meeting with Desire and Corinthian. I would have leaned into the fact that Desire probably is the one that made the Corinthian decide to leave Hell or to leave the Dream. You know,
I think people are going to look at this series and put too much weight on the Corinthian.
But see,
it really is. I mean, because of the way the series was constructed, you have to.
Well, yeah.
The Corinthian is a nobody.
He's a nobody in the long run, but he's important to the first season.
But he's not important to Sandman. Like that's the thing, right? Like that I'm saying is that instead of having to tell the story with the Corinthian being the overall antagonist, what if Desire was the overall antagonist? What if Desire was interacting with Ruthven Sykes? What if, or with Roderick Burgess? What if?
But that's not what they did.
We're talking about if we were fixing the show, Dan.
Right, but I'm saying that they kind of went halfway down this road. They should have finished going down the road.
And I'm saying it's a road that never went anywhere. It was never meant to go anywhere. So you go down a road and you realize the road doesn't go anywhere. You turn around and go back. You don't just keep driving until you're in the middle of a cornfield.
But see, you're looking again at the whole series.
Correct.
And the comics, and I'm looking at the story they just told in this season, because there's no guarantee there's going to be a second season. So you need to put together the best season possible.
Right, which means you need to explain what the Endless are, and screw the Corinthian and Gilbert and all of those characters. They don't even need to be in the first season. Explain what the Endless are, and then tell the story of Dream getting captured and getting his tools back. Those are the strongest stories you have in the first 30 or so issues of the comics.
And I'm saying that you could completely forget about the Endless. You don't have to explain them much and still be able to tell a good first season. And then the Endless becomes the focus of season 2 if you get a second season.
But if you don't get a second season, you've just created a character that operates under this kind of weird, abstract set of rules and laws that it has to follow that you don't really understand why.
Right. Instead, we end up with a couple minutes of Desire on screen that we don't understand. We get a milquetoast Corinthian. We get Gilbert torn down to almost nothing, and that's what we ended up with. So,
right, I think if you save the Corinthian, you save Brute and Glob or Galt, this is what they called her in the show. You save Gilbert and Fiddler's Green for the second season, or for the additional longer episode at the end, and do it more as a movie. I think you do a better service by those characters. And instead of spending so much time on Rose Walker, spend time explaining what Dream is.
We got to do another commercial, but before we do, Richard, I'm never will be wearing a Red Sox hat.
Yeah, Richard, we wouldn't let that on the air.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
This is The Experience.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hey there. Hi there. Hello there. You're as welcome as can be.
Hi, I'm Nancy McCann. Welcome to Friday Night Live on The Experience.
Welcome, everybody. It's Fat Jack's Comic Crypt. Brendan, Al, Jason, hanging out.
There I am. Welcome back to Kicking It with Andre, folks. I am your host, Andre Compa. It's great to be here with you guys.
So we are going to talk about books that are in stores this week.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Mishmash.
Hello, and welcome to the Black Comics Universe, presented by Peep Game Comics.
And you gotta love it that the first people in the minute to skim it are creators.
Up, everybody! Welcome to another Wednesday Warriors. My name is Joey Galvez, and this is my pal Ambrosia.
Hey, everybody! Welcome to Space Cadet.
Hey!
What's up?
Welcome, everyone, for another episode of I Must Ask You a Question.
Hi, everybody! Welcome to Nerd News Now.
Hey, this is Rex. Welcome to Comic Collectibles.
Hey, hello, all you happy people. Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. This is the crazy show that we do on Thursdays called What's in the Box?
What's in the box?
Comic culture and sales.
right, we are back, folks. We're talking about the Sandman with superfan Kyle, the human beard. And I'm going to address Edward's question here. The one thing that irked me and was never really explained, keep in mind, I zero knowledge of the comic, but in my opinion, it was really kind of too easy to summon and capture one of the Endless. They didn't get the Endless they wanted, Death, but they still were able to snatch and hold Dream way too long. I agree with you on that. Again, maybe they explain it later on. I don't know, because my experience is with the audiobook and the season. If Desire had been involved with that, is the one that kind of spurred Roderick to do that, or the Corinthian had, that would have made more sense, especially since they got the wrong one. Maybe they were given the wrong spell on purpose. I kind of got that feeling because there's a part where Desire says something about Roderick's, talked about it kind of like it may have been something that they had put together when Desire was talking to Despair. But yeah, but to me, the idea of the Endless doesn't interest me. And it doesn't interest me from having read. They didn't hint that Desire was behind the capture.
They did hint. And yeah. They never come out, in my recollection of the books, they never come out and directly say it, but it does get hinted around at a lot.
Yeah. So I think they specifically gave the way to capture Dream because that's who they wanted.
And remember that, and this is the problem, right? This is where me not being able to divorce what I know from what I saw really is a problem, because we're talking about how to fix. We were talking before the break about what we would do to kind of make the show stronger.
Yes.
So I know that there are stories later on that would have made the first season stronger. And I'm saying by bringing those stories into the first season and telling those stories and putting off things like the Corinthian and Gilbert and Rose Walker and some of this until later on, and really setting up what the Endless are. Because if you don't understand the Endless, you won't understand the rest until they explain to you the Endless. So it would have been the reason that Desire and Despair are messing with Dream is that they're the only ones, they can't mess with Death or Destiny because they're too strong. Destruction is gone. And Delirium is Delirium. Nobody wants to play with Delirium. So it's like having a little brother and sister tormenting a big brother, but the big brother is the middle sibling. Right? So it's not the one that everybody assumes it is. And at the same time, it's not the ones that are the new fanciness. It's the middle sibling. So that's why I think it would have been so much stronger to introduce all of the Endless and explain Dream's role in the Endless, explain what the Endless are a little bit more. And now it's very clear to whoever's watching the show that it was Desire that set Dream up to get captured, and that it was Desire that was pulling the strings on John D and all of these other people. And the problem we talked about last week of not understanding who the antagonist and the protagonist are and how the roles switch, it just establishes them.
Right. But see, and that's the thing, is that you're looking at it from the entire book, and I'm looking at it from just the first.
Right. If you've only been given the information that's in the audiobook or in this season, you have such an incomplete picture of what the story is.
Right. But I'm looking at it, how could I make that a good television season?
That everything.
With the idea that we could get to the Endless in season 2. They're not necessary for season 1 other than hints at them, and then introduce Desire at the end as the season 2 big bad. Focus on the Corinthian as the big bad for season 1. That is how I would approach it as a television writer.
Right. And I'm trying to approach it as someone who, because he has the knowledge of everything because he wrote it the first time. Neil Gaiman knows what's coming.
Yes.
He can pull he should have been responsible enough with his own story to pull stuff forward in the chronology of the original storytelling to make the season stronger.
But keep in mind, things have to happen. There are a lot of parts in the Sandman that nothing happens. There's some, intellectually things happen. Like the death episode. There's no television thing happening. It's a very talky episode.
I don't think going forward that I'm going to be able to talk about Sandman with other people who haven't watched or who haven't read all of Sandman. In that, it's not a dig on those people, but it's that idea of if I had seen Endgame and Infinity War both together before they were released, I couldn't talk to people who have just seen Endgame and who haven't seen Infinity War.
Right. But you're talking about, your example is they didn't see what came before. This,
I don't remember what order those crappy movies came out in. So,
okay, but this is the start of Sandman. We are taking the opening of Sandman and they adapted it. So you're trying to take all the stuff that happens later and bring it forward, when what they're doing is they're adapting the first arcs.
Right. It's like I'm from the future.
Oh,
Right.
It doesn't go well, does it?
It's never gone well, Dan. But no, it's that thing of I can't talk about this without potentially spoiling the future of the show for the people who will be watching the show for the first time. And conversely, because I cannot separate the two things, my brain doesn't work like that. I have 4 different adaptations of the first 10 books in my head now. Essentially is how that works. It's not, well, this is what the TV show has and what exists in the TV show, and this is what exists in the audiobook and what only exists in the audiobook, and this is what exists in the original book. These are the adaptations. This is the same 10 things, just done different ways.
Yeah.
So I don't have the ability to just say, well, whatever. Like, yeah. I don't know that more endless stuff is coming, so I'm not, I just can't do that.
But yes, that's the thing, is that the way you're looking to fix it is to take you think they're ever going to cover Daniel in the TV series?
I know the answer to that question. Like, I don't know the answer to that question. I could answer that question. But if you don't know who Daniel is, because he was only referenced for 6.5 seconds on the TV show, and you've not read all of Sandman, to answer that question would be to potentially give away a huge, colossal future plot point. And I think it's one of those things that I can't. Can you hear my phone ringing?
Yes.
God, they all know I'm on the air. Anyway, I just can't do it. That's why I can't talk about it. I can't. What Ed's talking about here?
Yeah. In the future, would it be possible to talk just about the TV show, pretending the comics don't exist? There's still part of the TV I want to talk about, but I don't have enough time, and trying to comic doesn't help me. Yeah. No, I understand. And I try to do that when I do it. The idea being that if it's something I think will help explain something, I tap into the comics. I do that with most of the Marvel stuff and the DC stuff. I'm not the super fan when it comes to Sandman. Kyle is. I know stuff from the audiobooks, but at this point, what I know of the audiobook now is complete as well, because I haven't listened to the second audiobook series yet. But so, yeah, I think that there is things that, from just the point of view of trying to adapt that first part, I think they could have made some changes and shift some things around that may have worked better. But I could also, if I knew more of it, I might be like Kyle going, oh no, we need to bring the Endless in. But from where I'm sitting right now, I would have pushed the Endless into season 2. I would have talked about it so little and just hint at Desire as the person behind the Corinthian. I would have made the Corinthian the big bad. And I would have played it like, it was a one season. If I've got one season, I got to put my best thing forward. I'm going to make this thing sing with these 2 story arcs. The getting his tools back and the Corinthian. That's what I got. I'm going to make this work. That's where I would have gone with. I would have put Death as the bonus episode because that would have been hint into the Endless. Yep.
Yeah, and that's exactly like it's why I'm saying I can't talk about, especially something like this, like Sandman, and I struggle when I talk about Spider-Man, or there are a few books like this that it's just I can't talk about it with people who don't have the same base knowledge as me. Dan, can I tell you a fun little thing? The
Sure.
second time my phone rang just now was FaceTime. My 2-year-old nephew has got his mother's phone and is running away from her in the house with his phone trying to call me.
Nice.
So I'm very excited for the phone call that's going to come after the show.
Nice. So, all right, guys, that's we've run out of time. So I don't think there's anybody on after us, is there?
No, we could go longer, but then I won't get any books read for tonight's later show.
Yeah, true. And I got a nap between shows. I'm old. I might be the oldest person on the network.
No.
Okay.
But it's impolite to talk about how old other people are.
Fair enough. So, but yeah. So, and that is something hard to do. What Kyle's talking about, I do it because I've also, as a writer, I've adapted things. I've taken novels and made comics out of them, and I've done comics and made novels out of them. And you work with what you've got, not necessarily everything. Yeah. By the way, Steve Conley created something for D&D that made me think of Kyle here. You get the Beard of Holding. Yeah, I saw that Kyle's 80 years old.
I do have a Beard of Holding, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. I think he actually created it for Dan Taylor.
That would make sense. Dan's beard is glorious.
It is. And they are doing a D&D podcast together. So, but all right, guys. So we'll wrap it up. We will come back tonight. Miss Jen will be on first with Minute to Skim It. And then Kyle, Jay, and I will be back to talk about, we've got about 8 books we're going to look at too with the new format we're using. So you'll want to come back for that. We're at 8 or 5 Pacific. Miss Jen is at 7 or 4 Pacific. And that's it for the day. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about the She-Hulk episode 2 and what might come up in episode 3. Plus, Megan Thee Stallion is joining the show. So, the She-Hulk show. She won't be on here. I mean, unless, Megan, if you're out there, you want to come on the show, come on down. We'll have you on. But so, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys tomorrow or later tonight. Have a good night.
Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.